You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Mama podcast. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn, and I am very excited today to have Simone Rizkallah on the show. She is the Director of Program Growth for the Endow Group, and also the host of the new Endow podcast, which I'm so excited to talk about. And I've asked Simone to come on to talk a little bit about her faith journey, as well as all the good work that Endow is doing, because up until relatively recently, I didn't know anything about Endow, and I love the rigorous intellectual, but also spiritual side of all of the studies that they do. So I'm excited to talk about that as well. Simone, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Christine, it's my pleasure.
So I'm sure there are some listeners who have heard your voice on the recently debuted Endow podcast, but if you wouldn't mind, for anybody else, introducing yourself a little bit more.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. I'm the Director of Program Growth for Endow Groups. And before that, I was teaching high school theology and was department chair at a Catholic high school in Phoenix. And that was very educational for me, and hopefully educational for the high school seniors. And was able to teach church history and moral theology to them. And I absolutely loved it. And then before that, I worked at a parish for 3 years doing parish ministry, RCIA. You know, when you work for the church, you wear a lot of hats. So RCIA and adult faith formation, religious education, youth ministry, all those kind of things. So I've been immersed in the church world for the past decade and have loved every minute of it.
That's awesome. So did you, usually when I talk to people who have worked for the church or taught religious studies in a school setting, you've been a lifelong Catholic. Is that right?
I have been a lifelong Catholic. Actually, I'm Eastern Rite, so that's kind of fun. So I'm not Roman Catholic. I'm Armenian Catholic, actually. But like a lot of Middle Eastern Catholics, we also are very close to the Roman Catholic Church because there's just more of you. So we have to hang out with someone. And of course, our Holy Father is based in Rome. But although I was a cradle Catholic, I had a reversion in my early 20s. So I was very determined not to be a Catholic anymore, and thought I was either going to become Greek Orthodox or I was going to become a Baptist, which is kind of fun. And ended up having an intellectual conversion to the church. Reading some books, just some, I was working in marketing in the secular world, really grappling with where I was going to belong in Christianity. Thought that I was done with Catholicism, read some books, had an intellectual conversion, but the intellectual conversion wasn't enough for me. I wanted to know where I belonged with people, and prayed a very strong prayer to God, said, if you want me to do this Catholic thing, you've got to send me witnesses. You have to send me people, because I don't live in my brain. So I live a life, and Christianity is ultimately a life shared. And, I think God answers those kind of prayers, because shortly thereafter I met faithful Catholic communities that really embraced me and took me into their lives, and I began to share life with them. And then I would say my reversion was complete, if you will. Yeah. We're always converting, right? But
sure,
that was the majority of it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I've heard this in homilies where the deacon or priest will say, now remember, we're not there to, talking about evangelizing, you're not there to win an argument, you're there to save a soul. And it really speaks to the point that you can give very rigorous intellectual reasons to believe in all this stuff, but if the heart isn't willing, it's not going to happen. I actually have a friend who is agnostic, and I asked my husband the other day, I was like, what's holding him back? And he's like, I think it's emotional at this point. Like, why doesn't he? Because it's all lined up. He's got all of his reasons why one would believe in all this stuff, but there's still, without the heart in there, it's impossible to maintain it.
Exactly. If only it were about the arguments, all of my high school students would have converted, I'd like to think. But it's a process, and certainly the witness is so key. And I needed to see the truth of the arguments and the truth of all that I was reading, the beauty that I was reading. I needed to see it incarnated in people, and
right.
And that's the heart has to be engaged, like you said. So thankfully I was able to come back home.
That's awesome. So that was about a decade ago, you said?
Oh, that's almost close to 2 decades.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, over 15 years, which I cannot believe, but there you have it.
Yeah, actually I was realizing my next high school reunion is closer to 20 years than not, and that is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, my 20-year came up, and I'm not going to do the math, Christine. It's just too depressing. Let's just say over 15 years ago, but I'm leaving it at that.
That's fine. That's fair. No need to do numbers.
Exactly.
We're talking about the heart right now, not cold mathematicals.
Exactly. Thank you.
So where you are now, do you have to travel very far for an Eastern Rite church, or are you nice and close to one?
No, there are more Armenians, I think, in Southern California than in Armenia. So I have to travel about half an hour.
That's awesome.
Which is not too bad. And there's actually a Maronite church in the town that I live in. So that's nice too. So.
I was surprised back when I was living in the Philadelphia suburbs by one of my in-laws' houses. There was a Maronite church, which just seemed so out of the blue because it didn't seem like I guess I wasn't that well versed with the community there, but I was just surprised to see that. And we never made it there, which I was sad about before we moved. But
yeah, I think it's nice when Western Catholics go visit Eastern. I mean, it's nice for Eastern Catholics to see their Western brothers and sisters kind of join them, and it's a very rich experience, and it's a rich relationship. And John Paul II said, as Catholics, we need to breathe with both our lungs. So referring to the Eastern and Western tradition. So we have such a treasure trove of rituals in the church. We can enjoy everything. We can enjoy Eucharistic adoration, St. Thomas Aquinas in the West, the Rosary, and also the icons and the emphasis on beauty and all of that in the East. So you can have it all as a Catholic. You can enjoy everything.
The goodness, the beauty, and the truth.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. And universal. That's awesome. Now, I don't want to go down into a rabbit hole too deeply because we are going to talk about Endow, but you said that you read some books. For somebody who needs an intellectual conversion, do you have any good starting places for them?
For an Endow study or in general?
In general.
In general, goodness. I think it just really depends on the person. For me, somebody had given me a Scott Hahn book. It was a very simple couple Scott Hahn books, some Tim Staples, Catholic Answers type stuff. And that was what led me on. Although really right now I love Brant Petrie. I think he's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I just love him. And I discovered him before he was famous. I remember going to a biblical studies conference out here in the West Coast, and Scott Hahn was speaking, and then this guy we never heard of, Brant Petrie, and we heard him speak, and we said, oh, this guy is going to be a huge gift to the church, because we could already see, this is before he published anything, we could already see how gifted he was and how faithful he was. So I would say I always kind of tailor my recommendations to the person in front of me, especially if they're more on the heady end, maybe like your husband, they've already read Aristotle, they've already read, so they're on a different level. But I think there are just so many books out there right now. But if somebody's if they're more philosophically minded, I'll recommend something else, something different than
Sure.
if they kind of need like a story or a saint. Some of my friends have converted just by saint stories, or sacred art. So it really just depends on who's asking.
I'm trying to go that route. My parents are fallen away Catholics, and I just read a book about Padre Pio. And I thought, that's a life filled with faith and lived out. And I know my parents, some of their objections to Catholicism from when they were kids And I have been trying to figure out how to evangelize to them
how do you
for the past 2 years, because it's your parents.
Right. How do you do damage control? Right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's difficult to bring this stuff up to, I don't know. I mean, I was having a hard time, and I was like, well, just, living my Catholic life and seeing the difference. And I've been praying a lot, and a little light bulb went off. So they got a copy in the mail the other day. We'll find out.
Of the Padre Pio book. I mean, you're not holding back. That guy is tough.
I want him to go back to confession.
No, for real.
And,
Padre, have you seen that? Well, there are many Padre Pio movies, but there's one I love in particular. It's like 3.5 hours long, and the Amazon Prime has a free version of it that's only 2 hours, and I reject it. You have to watch the whole 3.5 hour film on him, and you cannot watch it in English. You have to watch it in Italian with the English subtitles.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What is it?
It's what is it called? I think it's called Padre Pio Miracle Man. I'll have to send you an email after our conversation right now. But it's a game changer type film.
Awesome. I'll do it. I'll have to watch it and maybe read it out loud. My husband has terrible eyesight, but at least I can watch it. I'm not sure if he can do the subtitles. You might not be able to read it without squinting.
I know you're on the interviewing end, but if you're able to share what their objections are, I'd be curious.
Oh, my parents?
Yeah.
I think it was just poor catechesis. My dad is one of 10 children, and I think every single one of them left the church.
Yeah.
My grandparents were very heavily involved in the community aspect of the church. I know my grandfather was like the bingo caller at all the church bazaar events and things. But I have a feeling that I know my dad got his knuckles rapped more than once by nuns with rulers. So that caricature, he got that. And I think it was more like, believe this, don't ask why. And so that disenchanted my father as soon as he was able to make a decision, or felt like he was able to in his 20s. He just left and never looked back. So I grew up with all religion just being BS and it causing more problems in the world than good. And my mom just said that she used to go to church to see, which one of her friends or which boys were in the pews. So it was not, and I think her parents gave each of her and her sisters the choice to leave once they were done with confirmation. And I think most of them did.
God, it's such an interesting approach. I wonder if they would like Bishop Barron's book.
Yeah, I've mentioned to my parents how great the Catholicism series was. Yeah. That really helped explain to me things that because I grew up, my best friend, even though I grew up in the Bible Belt where there was mostly Baptists or non-denom Christians.
Right.
My best friend was Catholic. And so I would wind up going to church with her whenever I spent the night on a Saturday. And so I was very familiar with the Catholic Mass. I knew nothing about what it meant, but I would just, roll my eyes when the bells rang to the transubstantiation. And
right.
So I had a familiarity with Catholicism, but watching that series explained everything that I was kind of just, brushing off or making fun of all those years.
I mean, I mentioned it just because he takes so seriously and keeps saying over and over and over again, the statistics don't lie. People leave because they don't think the church has intellectual arguments, reasonable arguments for what they believe and for our Catholic worldview. So it just kind of emotionally affirming to have someone like Bishop Barron say, you were betrayed catechetically, right?
Yeah.
Your questions are valid and they should have been answered and investigated immediately as you were asking them. And it's not a Catholic thing to do to shy away from difficult questions. I mean, the university system and the scientific method came out of the church. So, it's not Catholic to do that.
Yeah. I know one of the things I sweat bullets when I told my dad that I was converting. It was probably the most nerve-wracking conversation I've ever had in my life. And I said, I've done a lot of research. It's all very rational and reasonable, it's logical. And he goes, and he's like, okay, all right. Well, I've always said blind faith is no faith at all. So I think blind faith was pushed on him and he realized that he actually didn't believe it. Now I will say though, it seems like he is seeing us raise our children now Catholic and being very Catholic in our home and witnessing all of this. And also now that he's seeing our secular world in the state that it's in, and seeing the natural end of consequences of this life without religion that he wanted for so long, and seeing how crazy and awful it is, that maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
So
you if you cut the culture off from the root, from the spring, from the source, it's going to start to decay. So
yeah.
There you go. I think they're not too far off. I have a lot of hope. I'll keep them in my prayers.
Thank you. I pray constantly for both of them. And because I know, especially, I mean, studies have shown if the father is a practicing faith-filled person, then the children tend to be as well, more so than if the mother. So I mean, there is a patriarchal head of the family. And if that's a strong, faithful person, then it can help everybody else in the family. Because I do have a sibling and a sister-in-law and all, and other, a nephew and soon to be niece that I would love to see.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, just all the dominoes would fall.
Yeah.
In a good way, I should say.
Yes, you got this, Christine.
Hopefully. Well, we'll start with Padre Pio. He said that he liked American beer, and I in the note to my parents, like, he likes American beer. That's something you have in common.
That is hilarious. I didn't even know that.
This book I got. It's Pray, Hope, and Don't Worry. I think it's True Stories of Padre Pio is what it's called, and it's a collection of stories that people have written into the Padre Pio Foundation, I believe it is, over the past several decades that were compiled into a book. And so it's very interesting to hear these personal testimonies.
You can write to the Padre Pio Foundation, become an official spiritual daughter of Padre Pio.
Oh, what's funny is I didn't know that, but thank you, because I will. Yeah. I was reading the book and I was like, I want Padre Pio to be my spiritual father. And I prayed, I asked for that. The next time I opened the book, it's a story of Padre Pio talking to an American soldier back in World War II. And he tells the American soldier, I will take any American as my spiritual son or daughter. They just have to ask. And I was like, oh, great.
Oh, it was, I gave that as a Valentine's Day gift to my sister one year.
Oh, that's so nice. I like that.
You can't top that. Padre Pio, who said he wouldn't enter the kingdom until all his spiritual children were in. I thought, okay, I'm going to get on this.
I like that. I might just start putting everybody in that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure we have time to talk. You have to come back on because I'm having a great time talking to you. But I do want to talk because we're talking now, I mentioned other spiritual readings or, this intellectual side of things. Can you explain the Endow group for the listeners?
Absolutely. Well, I'm so, you mentioned to me that, you hadn't heard about Endow, and I hadn't either. And I had been a reader for about a decade, and I hadn't heard about Endow. And I thought, wow, we need to get the word out. When I started working for them, that was really my goal, is that I wish that I had known about Endow a long time ago. And I would have been involved in Endow groups for, a long time if I had. I was looking for something like it. I didn't even know it had already existed. So thank you so much for helping to get the word out there on Endow. And what it combines are those two things that led to my conversion, which is intentional community and intellectual formation. So an Endow group is the marriage of those two key things. Our study guides are based on papal documents, magisterial documents, and the writings of the saints. And we have this increasing desire, which is, expected for reasonable creatures that we are, the study guides are designed to engage the intellect. And so you're actually reading the primary source, you're reading the life of the saint, you're reading a papal document, an encyclical, magisterial text, and so forth. You're accessing it, and then you're reading a commentary on it, and then with discussion questions. And so these study guides are meant to be used in small group communities. So it's not likely, it doesn't happen often that kind of on your own, you're just going to print an encyclical or, and just start reading it, right? We need each other for a full intellectual experience. So I think of Edith Stein, for example, who, was a philosopher and who had, all an intellectual life. I mean, she was a philosopher and an academic, but it was going to Raisa and Jacques Maritain's Thomistic circles, these communities where they would kind of engage these great ideas together, that really helped her on her conversion to Catholicism. So an Endow study is an 8 to 12 week study with a group of women, using our study guides and accessing a particular text. So we have study guides on John Paul II's letter to women, the Feminine Genius, Mulieris Dignitatum. We have study guides on St. Thomas Aquinas, on the Doctors of the Church, on St. Edith Stein, on St. Catherine of Siena. So we have about 20 study guides. We also have, so we also have Magnifica, which is our apostolate to the Hispanic community. So hopefully your listeners will be aware of that too. And as you know, our Hispanic community is growing and growing and growing, and we need resources and programs to fill that desire to know the truth and to access it with ease. So the study guides are unique in that, of course, they have the imprimatur and all of that, but you're actually accessing the primary text. You're reading it, on its own, and then you're reading a commentary, helping it unpack it, and then the discussion questions are used to carry that conversation in your small group. So they can be used also in self-studies, but the beauty about a group is that our director of content, Laura, works very hard to make sure that it's readable out loud. So especially for busy moms who don't have time to be reading Aquinas in their free time, you show up at an Endow study, there's no homework, you read it out loud, the chapter for the week, and then you discuss it together. So it's a beautiful marriage of intentional community. I recognize that I need to be part of a community, and I want that community to be based on Christ, but to be based on something rigorous and substantial, and it's really going to feed my mind. So
you had me at no homework.
Exactly. We're very busy, but if you can carve out, an hour to 2 hours a week for 8 weeks, or 10 weeks or 12 weeks or however long, some groups are even, bi-monthly or monthly, right? Then you can feel good about the fact that, you are part of a community, but you're also taking your intellectual life seriously. I was just talking to an Endow woman who had emailed me and said that her friend had been joking around with her saying, no need to buy a planner this year, Corona. And she said, actually, I did buy a planner because I want to make sure that I carve out time, not just for exercise or my family or, things I have to do, but I want to carve out time for my spiritual and intellectual growth. And so I thought, wow, this is very inspiring that she's taking that just as seriously as all the other elements that make up her life.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had someone on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the importance of the physical and the spiritual, that you need to be spiritually fit and physically fit. So you have to plan for all this stuff. If you just if you don't make the time, actually intentionally carve out time for prayer, whatever, it just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen. And the point of philosophy and theology and studying it is to feed your spiritual life. So it doesn't just remain this, intellectually elite exercise, right? But it's something that brings you closer to God. And God wants to come to men through other men, Ratzinger says. So when I go to an Endow group, I'm not only accessing my own thoughts and my own, dialogue with God, but I'm also seeing perspectives from my sisters in Christ, and I'm being also fed by them and witnessed to by them. And you're right. If it's not carved out, it just doesn't happen. So,
yeah. I was thinking too, it's so important for all of us. So I'm a convert, right? So I did not have a lot of religious or Catholic friends prior to conversion, but afterwards I really craved that kind of community because I wanted to have people with shared values. And it's so important that we have quality friendships, especially those that help us get to heaven.
Exactly. We get tired of, even for those of us that have a lot of friends or a social life, it's draining if it's not based on something deep and true and brings you closer to some insight or truth or epiphany or in God. It gets tiring and you just feel lonely at the end of it. After, if you don't have those few people in your life that you can really go deep with in your spiritual life, the entertainment, the amusement, the social stuff, it gets old pretty quick. I desire friendship, specific people that I can actually share these ideas and insights with. And an Endow group does that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Right around the time that I converted, I was still working full time in an office, and there was such an interesting juxtaposition between, I went out to a happy hour with some coworkers, which basically our only thing that we have in common was that we worked in the same place. But we went out for happy hour, and then either the next day or a couple days later, I went to the Bible study at the Catholic Church. And what a huge difference that, it was fun being with my friends for happy hour, but it felt almost like eating cheap Chinese takeout, where I was hungry so quickly afterwards. But then when I went to the Bible study with fellow women, fellow Catholics, or even just Christians, not everybody there was Catholic.
Right.
I felt like I had a good steak dinner, it filled me up for longer and actually made me feel like I'd eaten something substantial and good for me.
Oh, I just love that. It's a perfect analogy for what I was talking about. It's exactly right. We really crave that steak dinner, and it takes longer to make, and it takes longer to prepare,
right?
And it takes longer to eat, but the satisfaction is so much greater
than just the junk food.
Right?
Although that is tasty too.
We have to have that too.
Yeah, just a little bit
all the time.
That's right. Okay, so with any of these, you said about 20 studies. People can get together and get any of them at any time. It's not like they're on a set schedule, right?
No. I mean, oftentimes women will ask me, is there like a curriculum I can follow? And our foundational study is Letter to Women, because Endow stands for Educating on the Nature and Dignity of Women, which is the name of Mulieris Dignitatum, on the vocation and dignity of women. So Endow was started by women who discovered John Paul II's writings, particularly on the feminine genius, and thought, oh my gosh, John Paul II thought that women were cultural game changers and wanted to empower them to transform culture in their unique feminine genius. So Endow kind of started that. So I recommend starting with Letter to Women. That's our foundational text, because that was the inspiration behind the founding of Endow. But you certainly don't have to start there. If you're like, just give me some St. Thomas Aquinas now, or give me Humanae Vitae now, there's no rule book,
cool.
follow where the Spirit's going.
Awesome. And then as we wrap up, what can you briefly explain the new podcast that you're hosting?
Oh, that's so good. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, the Endow podcast. Well, the idea behind it was, actually it was all very humble. I started doing these Instagram lives with these wonderful people and thought, these people are great. There's people like Sherry Waddell and George Weigel and so forth. And so the idea was, why not a podcast for Endow dedicated to women that is specific towards cultivating the life of the mind. So certainly intentional community discipleship, missionary discipleship, and all of that. How to build community. Building community is difficult. It takes a lot of sacrifice. There's always kind of sometimes pastoral challenges. So that the podcast will also address that. But the idea is that it's a place where women can go to feed their mind. There's a lot of stuff out there. Hopefully in the Endow podcast, it's brand new, so it's just had its birthday a couple weeks ago, will be a place where women can, learn about, just like you said, sink their teeth into that steak, or just get a little the appetizer dish. It's a podcast, right? It's not a college course, but a little appetizer dish before that steak.
I love that. It's funny. Right before a couple years ago, I was struggling to find the next thing I felt like reading, and I was like, man, I'm not really interested in anything, and now I'm a Catholic and I've got 2,000 years of stuff to dig through. So I don't think I'm running out anytime soon. But that's also, there is so much. So to have it curated in a way by very intelligent, rigorously intellectual women is awesome.
Yes. I that's exactly right. And there's no, I was just thinking about this the other day, Christine, because I was looking at my library thinking, you'll be dead before you touch even half of these. And just kind of mourning that loss. That's such a nerdy Catholic girl thing to do. But yeah, being exposed to these people who are experts in their fields, or and having them curate it for me gives me an access to a world of thought and ideas that they're privileged to have delved into deeply. But for me, I can only go so far with it. So I just want to bring those people out and expose them to as many women in the church as possible.
Oh, I love it. What a wonderful mission. Okay, so as we wrap up, Simone, I know that you have your own Instagram and all that stuff. So where can we find you and Endow?
So for Endow on Instagram, the handle is @EndowGroups, and you can go to our website, endowgroups.org. If you want to contact me directly, I have a blog, culturalgypsy.com. And also my Instagram handle is @culturalgypsy. So please feel free if you want me to pray for you. I love it when I get emails and messages for intercessory prayer, or you have you can contact me either through Endow or Cultural Gypsy. But any pastoral, theological, spiritual question, or looking for a resource or perfect prayer or whatever, please don't hesitate to reach out. And especially for those who are listening, are thinking, you know what, I do want to actually carve out time in my schedule for an Endow group. What's 8 weeks? You're going to get so much out of it. Please feel free to contact me if you'd like to become an Endow host for that, or find a group. If you're listening and you're like, maybe I'm not ready to lead a group, but I want to find a group out there that's starting up, especially now with all the virtual groups going, that's easier and easier to do. So please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Awesome. I will put the links for everything you just listed in the show notes too, so people can just click and find easily enough. Simone, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Our 30 minutes has really flown by.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing with your podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. And until next time.
Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy to understand grown-up answers, the pared down but not talked down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources if you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up where knowledge takes flight.